So they were not willing to first pick it for Skara, and they definitely don't want it in the hands of Shifter.
Well, we do see one last ban remaining over on the side of Team Coast. LeBlanc, Rise, Nidalee removed, as well as Soraka and Karzik. So that's at least one of the junglers taken off the table. Crumbs still has the possibility to fall back to his Evelynn. Nocturne is still available as well, and of course the Xin Zhao, who's really been the sort of the top tier junglers for this weekend's playoffs.
And even as far back as last season, Crumbs has been spectacular on Xin Zhao. I would not be surprised if he did go back to that pick. It was actually taken away mostly by I Will Dominate in their series yesterday, and it's his kind of champion.
Well, the question is now, what is the priority for Team Dignitas? Thresh is up, Annie is up, Nocturne is up.
A lot of talking going on.
There's so many champions available. It's one of those things, well, do you want to play it safe? Do you just want to lock something in that can't be counterpicked? I mean, a lot of talking from everybody across the table.
I really wonder what the chain of command is like within the Dignitas team at the moment, because everyone likes Scar as a coach, and they like Crumbs as a shot caller. But how many shots is Scar trying to call within the game right now as opposed to outside? They go with the safe first pick and just end up going with Lucian.
Okay, so first and foremost, Curse let me down, and they broke Lucian's undefeated streak. But this is the third game in a row. Third game in a row. That's a Lucian first pick on blue side. Completely taking it off the table, denying that to WizFuture, and QtPie are going to be pretty comfortable on that pick.
Just the safety pick at the moment. And I wonder if Coast is going to go with something strange. They do go with more standard things. Nintendo X being able to take the Elise is standard fare. The Thresh is also a hook support for Daydream, and something he shied away from a little bit, but it's really where he draws most of his strength from.
So 9 times playing Thresh during the regular season for Daydreaming. This is 5 games on Elise in the regular season. Both of these teams not having the highest number of wins to back up their stats. I mean, QtPie's Lucian, this is the 11th time we're seeing it in recent times, and he's only racked up 3 victories.
No, he has not had a good time on Lucian.
When you're sitting low down the table, of course, those win-losses are getting skewed.
And the strangest thing about Lucian is I don't necessarily feel like he has a huge sway in games. He's just a safe pick. He's a safe 80 carry, and teams like having him there. The big decider in this, really, I think, is Crumbs' Lee Sin. It actually gets banned away from him frequently, and it could also not even go for him. It could be a top laner for Cruiser. Dignitas, one of the few teams that can use that as a flex pick, since that's really what Cruiser entered competitive League of Legends with.
Well, we'll see how the rest of the pick ban phase plays out. Yesterday, Team Coast did run that Irelia in the top lane, along with a LeBlanc in the mid lane. With LeBlanc being banned out, Shifter's going to need to find something else to pull out of his kit. But knowing that both of the supports of Leona and Thresh are locked in, I think KiwiKid had some good Leona initiations, Daydreaming had some good Thresh initiations. Jat, you talked about this yesterday. Skara is locking in the Karthus. We are seeing it on him.
It's exactly what you would expect from Scar when Nidalee isn't off the board. It's really his bread and butter as far as champions are concerned. There was Gragas, but before there was Gragas for Skara, there was Karthus, and he gets to go back to him right now. I like the Nocturne in the jungle, means they get to do Lee Sin in the top lane. It is an aggressive, high damage team composition, a lot of front-loaded damage on their team, which should be able to let Scar clean up with the Requiems. All things considered, a very strong team comp for Team Dignitas.
Over on the side of Team Coast, Ari was the last lock-in to complement that mid lane. So Shifter's going back to his carry style champions. Hey, he's picked up some solo Nexus kills in this champion, why not?
Shifter's going to keep playing Ari when they give it to him. He is an assassin player, and Ari has been one of the assassins he has the most success on. The fear with him playing Ari is Ari's damage comes out a little bit slower than some of the other assassins that instantly kill someone, and Scar, with that exhaust now that has 50% damage reduction, it might be a little bit too tough for him to actually take him down once he goes in, but I've seen Shifter do more crazy things.
For anybody that watched the Alliance versus Fnatic in the EU playoffs will know that how powerful that exhaust is against an assassin. Pekka was on Zed. Again, something we've mentioned. We'll need to see how that works out. As the teams are loading on the Rift, let's crunch the numbers, as we've been doing all day, over at lolesports.com. 74% of the vote, I think, are predicting Dignitas will come out on top. And be sure to head over to Twitter, send us your votes through the series, and we'll be checking out who you think is victorious.
Tweet us at LOLesports and use the hashtag DIGWin or CSTWin. And we'll be checking on the vote throughout the games.
Made a big swing in TSM versus CLG.
That was going all back and forth.
Yeah, swinging
Starts
back
with
and
TSM,
forth. Of course.
swung all the way to CLG. And then the one game, False Hope, back to TSM.
It's exactly how the series played out as well. So we are into the deciding game for the final spot in the summer split of the North American LCS. The winner secures their job for a few more months. The loser is going to put it on the line. Dignitas versus Coast, best of 3. Let's see how this game plays out.
Yeah, both of these teams have spent some time in a promotion tournament in the past. Happened with Dignitas way back in the 2013 spring split. And Coast, most recently, they had to re-qualify for this split, actually, taking out the Walking Zed in a really entertaining best of 5. And looking to avoid such a fate again. Of course, this doesn't mean they're out of the LCS, it just means they have to re-qualify. It's very important for these guys to win this game so they can start thinking about next split.
Yeah, make sure you don't put yourself in that position. Don't run the risk of being knocked out of the summer promotion tournament next weekend. Opening minutes, both teams sitting on the tri-bushes. Nothing really happening. You may be seeing Coast going for a blue invade. Dignitas most likely going to pull the same sort of shenanigans. Another slow start. We'll have to see how the cookie crumbles in terms of the 2v1s and tower pushing, because Coast and Dig, not the greatest yesterday.
No, neither of them really had spectacular early plays. Dignitas usually came out ahead on Curse in the 2v1 swaps, so I would say they're very comfortable with this type of gameplay. Seeing as they're the ones on the bottom and Coast is the ones on top, it looks like we're going to see that 2-turret trade. The question only remains is it going to be executed immediately by Coast, and are they going to lose out on a turret, because that happened to them yesterday?
Well, that question will be answered within the next 2 to 3 minutes, chat. And the invades are on. So Dignitas moving into the blue buff. Coast moving into Dignitas's blue. We see that Scar was the first one to lane in the middle. We'll see whether or not that early CS, early experience maybe will help him out. But for the time being, no, not really, because not much was missed by Shifter.
Yeah, the solo 1v1, not too much happens early on. Scar is just going to want to farm, and I wonder which teams are going to be adopting the buddy system. The buddy system is, of course, when the jungler and the top laner share all of the experience for all the buffs, then they hit level 2 together and go to push that lane as a unit. Notice how Crumbs and Cruiser are employing the buddy system right now. They hit level 2 exactly, and they will be pushing faster.
Over on the other side, Zion Spartan level 1 to the level 2 of Nintendo X. You're going to be pushing this minion wave onto the tower.
He got a minion though, so he'll get that. But look at how much farther behind this minion wave is than the one on the bottom, because now not only is Coast fighting against the turrets having damage reduction in the top lane versus not having damage reduction in the bottom lane, they also started slower. So Dignitas might end up pulling off another 2-turret for 1 trade unless Coast miraculously kills turrets faster, which I don't see happening.
No, it doesn't seem to be the case. Dignitas already within touching distance of Coast's inner turret. Dig only just securing that top outer turret. Cannon minion sitting along with the rest of Dignitas' team, so 4 members got themselves on there. The bonus attack damage from Duskbringer going to be helping Crumbs out to get this tower down.
Yep.
But to be fair, nobody started recalling it, and Coast are on that inner turret.
Yeah, it should still be a 2-for-2 trade. Dignitas probably could have actually sent 1 person back early, maybe even 2, and helped stop this push from happening. But as it is now, they might get a little bit of damage on their next turret, but it's probably going to be this 2-for-2 trade.
Well, Dignitas...
very close. It's on a razor's edge of actually being a bad trade for Coast. They just get by, though.
Yeah, Dignitas really pushed that inhibitor turret, forced Coast to recall a little bit early on, but even starts for both teams. Dignitas have got the numbers advantage to go for incredibly early dragon.
Yeah, they like doing early dragons. I think they'll be able to get this one, too, because they rotated so much faster. And I'm a little bit disappointed in the Coast team right now, because it's not a surprise that teams are doing these lane swaps on you. They should have their plan together when they go into this, so they don't come out of the early game lane swaps down 800 gold. They should know how to trade it evenly, because you can absolutely do it. Even so, Dragon down, they try to make something happen mid because they're already behind and playing catch up again, something they don't want to do.
Oh, so to see how they make up that gold difference. Now that the lanes are going to slowly start resetting, Zion Spartan has had some additional time in the lane ahead of Cruiser, so he's got himself 15 odd CS. Cruiser does have a minion wave in that top to play with. Although it does look like it's pushing towards Coast's top tower, so we'll see how it works out. It's actually I'm a Cutie Pie that is the first member of the team that is going to that side lane. Something that I think Kobe was talking about earlier today or yesterday. The interesting decisions of how teams send the respective champions to the lane to grab that farm.
Yeah, one really fascinating thing about League of Legends, back in Season 3, the previous time we saw a lot of prevalent early game lane swapping, is you get these situations where there are empty lanes of farm. You don't need to be a good player, you don't need to be a good champion to get that farm. It's basically free. But what the team does get to decide is who they trust with that farm. And that really defines the playstyle of a lot of teams. For Dignitas right now, they're giving it to Cutie Pie. CLG likes to give it to Doublelift often in the past.
Very smart play by Kiwi Kid. Burns Shifter's flash, so
yeah,
playing
the roaming
catch up.
Support. He loves roaming on support.
Managed to make it work. Slow and patient. Skara didn't really make any sort of moves to go for a kill in that situation. Taking a quick look down the summoner spells. Double heals on 80 carries and supports.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of healing going on in this team fights. Just one Ignite in the game. It's on Coast's Shifter. But speaking of the empty lane farm, Coast gives it to Zion Spartan. He got a lot of empty lane farm in their game against, or in their playoff games prior, and he was not really able to make a huge advantage of it. They just forgot or didn't know how to win the games. But once again, he gets a lot of it. He's at 36 to Cruiser's 15. Can he make it count?
Well, Cruiser did have a very large number of minions to grab themselves. Daydreaming, look for the hook. Can he land it? That's the question. And no, he can't, because that's a flash. Zion Spartan comes in for the stun. That's a taunt onto Kiwi Kid. He's held in place by the charm. Zion goes under the tower. Kiwi Kid's still alive. Ignite is burning. I think he survived that one. A lot blown in that engage, and Coast do not get the kill.
The double heal, one to get rid of the Ignite debuff and the other one to heal for the full amount, barely keeps Kiwi Kid alive. A level 3 takes so much damage. Keeps this game 0-0, but Coast tries to push on mid.
Oh, that spell shield from Crumbs. Almost. Meant he was going to get caught out. Cocoon connects. Coast get a couple of hits onto that mid turret, but not enough to put any sort of threat onto Dignitas' line. At the end of the day, Coast forced to recuperate. You know, another aggressive play, the roaming, but this time from Coast. This time it was Coast that had a whole bunch of members in that middle lane.
Still kind of feel like they were trying to play catch up. The only reason that became bad for Dignitas is because Zion Spartan followed Kiwi Kid through the roam and was on his tail, so he had to make a bit of a quick retreat. Still overall a pretty good move from Coast, but they're not necessarily taking their own initiative. There's still a lot of farm coming down from Scar. He's going with that big mana build, looking for the late game on Karthus.
So far, a slower start, and something that we tend to see once those towers go down. Not always going to be a whole bunch of towers following immediately after. Just taking a look at this bottom lane now. Zion Spartan's got some support from WizFusion and Daydreaming, but it looks like Dig has read the situation well, and this is going to be a 4-on-4 defense with only Cutie Pie being on the other side of the map.
Scar actually came down because he was expecting a dive and maybe to add some supplemental wave clear, but I'm very surprised by that. I feel like Scar should stay in the mid lane and just keep farming up his Storm. Just play like he used to, get in his comfort zone, you know, try and break his CS marks of 300 CS at 25 minutes. Not quite going to happen in this game.
From that right
There's
now.
no way it's going to happen in this game, but I think that's the mindset he should actually be in right now.
Well, we'll see if Coast can make something happen. They pushed the wave all the way to the bottom tower, decide they didn't quite like the scenery, went on a romantic walk through the river, checked out the mid lane tower, and decided that it wasn't the restaurant for them. They're going to find another place for their dinner date. Coast really, they're moving a lot for no real gains.
And I think we're going to end up seeing a fair amount of that play from this game from Coast and Dignitas. We can't kid ourselves. These guys are struggling LCS teams. It is the 5th place versus 6th place matchup. They both lost their playoff series yesterday. These teams are not at the absolute top of their game. They're playing to see who is better than one another. There's still a lot of holes within these teams for Coast. They don't necessarily know where they're going a lot of the time. They don't have an overarching strategy in the game. They have very good individual skills. Shifter's amazing. Zion can do great things in 1v1s. Even WizFusion, if he gets unlocked and has confidence in himself, he had a 15-kill game earlier in the split, where that's more than anyone has gotten in a single game in this split. And those are the weaknesses that they have to overcome in this game. It doesn't mean the game's going to be fast, though. The game's going to be very slow.
Well, we'll need to keep our eyes on who can take advantage of their opponent's mistakes or weaknesses in their game more efficiently. I do want to touch on the fact that Nintendo picked up Elise. The 2 games that we've seen yesterday, he went for those feral flare junglers of Xin Zhao followed by Nocturne, and we were left wanting, I think is the most polite way to say it.
Wanting to see him farm that thing up.
And he's defaulted, gone back to a champion that's a bit more comfort for Nintendo.
Yeah, and we saw some success from Meteos' Elise. He obviously takes a lot more farm than Nintendo. They're trying the old pink brush and award trick, hoping to get Dignitas check it.
Oh, that was very, very close. Skara just stepped back for a moment, manages to get away from the death sentence. Dragon has respawned. First one was picked up by Dignitas at 4 minutes. It's going to be slightly more valuable now, though.
Well, Crumbs has a Nocturne ult up. They have good ward coverage of the area, and they have teleport on Lee Sin. They're going to see how much Coast wants to commit to this Dragon, and then I think they're going to go in for a fight unless Coast peels off. They're just biding their time here.
Well, there's the paranoia. In comes Crumbs. They've turned attention over to Daydreamer. He's going to be the first victim of the fight. Coast were peeling away and basically gave that one up. Now Dignitas onto the Dragon. 4 members of Coast still sitting around on the sidelines. Remember, Requiem is available. Kiwi Kid has been zoned out. Scar is going to be the first target. Dragon secured by Dignitas while that's going on. Now comes the Requiem. Can it do enough to get kills? It gets 1 onto Nintendo. The rest of Dignitas chasing down Zion Spartan. Ends up being a 1-for-1, but Dragon to dig.
Yeah, all told, that's actually pretty good for Dignitas. They even killed Daydreamer before the fight happened, and the death timer was fast enough. It ends up being a 2-for-1. Big gold advantage, and just smarter overall play by Dignitas. A good call to go in when Crumbs did. The teleport came, it caught Daydreamer out of position, and gives them an edge.
So now Coast, 3 members in this mid lane. There's not a lot of safe wave clear on the side of Dignitas, so they're sitting way back. Coast looking to grab themselves a 3rd tower of the game. Nobody really from Dig able to defend that one. Coast balance out that global gold of the Dragon with at least securing the tower in the mid lane.
Yeah, and let's take another look at this one. Daydreamin was just completely out of sorts in this one. He didn't have his box up, he did have his flash, but it wasn't necessarily worth it because he was so dead to rights, and the rest of the Coast team wasn't ready to get caught in Scar. They did not want to pile on fight at the Dragon Pit. So it was actually kind of nice that Shifter did take down Scar on the side. The exhaust delayed it and made it so both solo laners had to kill Scar, which meant the rest of the Coast team was trapped with 4 Dignitas people. That's why the Dragon went to Dig, and that's why Dig ended up winning the fight 2-1.
So Dignitas holding the kill lead, holding the gold lead. They have lost 3 of their own towers, though. So we're going to see if they can even up that tower score. Dig seem to be fairly content to just continue farming. They haven't really made any sort of concerted effort at pushing towers down. They got champions that do well the later the game goes.
The mid lane turret being down is actually going to be pretty bad for Dig because it makes it harder for Scar to control his mid lane. You can already see Coast trying to make some invades for this blue buff and deny Scar some of his farm.
So Daydreaming's got those boots of mobility. Going to be motoring in, looking to set something up. There are multiple members of Dignitas nearby. This could be a 5-on-4. Crumbs forced to smite that one away. It means it's not in Scar's hands. So small win for Coast.
Yep. Not the end of the world for Scar, though. He does have a tier and a Rod of Ages. So he should be able to keep his farm up by just max range clearing with his Q, little Karthus Skittles. And Crumbs will continue to power farm. He's at 20 stacks on his Wriggles Lantern. So he's definitely going to have a faster transform than Nintendo Dex did yesterday on that item. But
significantly
nothing insanely fast.
Well, we'll see how quickly that will come into play. Something that we've seen from TSN, no, CLG actually, was the attempted 2-man Baron. And with that Lee Sin, maybe Karthus in there, there's a lot of damage that can come out. I mean, Karthus with those Skittles doing double damage when something's alone. Maybe with the Feral Flare, they could sneak that away from Coast. Coast need to make sure they get their warding up in about 5 or 10 minutes time when that becomes a realistic possibility.
More turrets about to be traded right here. There's Dignitas pushing the top lane pretty heavily while Coast is bottom. I wonder how far they're going to go, because this could easily become a 2-turret trade. That's why Zion teleports back immediately. It's actually a pretty smart play by Coast here.
So Coast are going to at least grab themselves that bottom turret. They continue to push down the lane. Paranoia is available for Crumbs. He's stuck in that mid lane for now. 4 members of Dig up top, 3 down the bottom.
And there is no teleport on the Dignitas team if they want to defend this turret. Coast can keep pushing as long as they want, as long as they can hold their turrets on the other side.
Yeah, we'll see how well they do at defending top. It looks like Crumbs has pushed the minion wave in the mid lane up to the tower, and Dig seem to be rotating towards that. There's a first recall now from Cruiser. Dignitas feeling that their inhibitor turrets may be under pressure. Karthus, Skara rather, is going back as well.
So Coast winning the turret game ever so slightly, but not farming too well. Crumbs stops to clear out a ward instead of trying to chase down more on a Coast, and Coast gets out of it scot-free.
Threat, of course, of Crumbs coming in from potentially behind. Makes Coast back away. So Dignitas just continue growing this lead ever so slightly. Something that we actually haven't seen much of QtPie. He's been off on that side lane for most of this game. Got himself a good 20 CS advantage over WizFusion. We are, 5 minutes later than we were talking in the pregame, but WizFusion maybe not as far behind as he was yesterday, but by no means keeping up with QtPie in terms of net gold right now.
Yeah, and we didn't necessarily have a laning phase like they did in the CLG game, so it wasn't completely on him. And we know Coast as a team, as far as free lane farm goes, always gives it to Zion and Shifter.
Talking about CS, Nintendo has 37 minions.
Yes.
The reason I highlight that, in contrast to Crumbs, who is on 90, Nintendo has had a very tough weekend. Struggled yesterday.
It's had a tough couple months.
Touche.
Yeah.
I was trying to be polite, yeah? But Nintendo really not sitting pretty. Close to a large amount of gold down behind Crumbs.
Yeah,
I was going to do math
at the moment. It's
bail.
actually it's 1,600 gold just from the jungle right now, and it's not like his lanes have gained substantial advantages off of that. He's going to need to be able to make some plays with his cocoon at some point within this game. Otherwise, that pick's going to end up going to waste. He's doing the cooldown boots. Meteos did that in their game just previous to this against Curse, but he was able to get his items much faster than Nintendo is currently. 2
full levels down on Crumbs. Crumbs making his way to level 11, halfway there. Nintendo just sitting at level 8. And again, Coast continue with these map rotations. They've been very mobile in and around the map, and it is hurting them. If you look at the CS numbers, they are a big amount behind. 30 in the top lane, 50 in the jungle, 40 now on your AD carry. Just as I talked about WizFusion not being too far behind, the gap extends.
They're still playing catch-up, so to speak. 17 minutes into the game. Very reactive to what Dignitas has done. Dragon is live once again. Scar would love to hit level 11 before this one. There's some actually pretty huge level disparities in this one. KiwiKid level 6, he often falls very far behind in experience, but he's still willing to go in for big initiations.
There's 2 levels between your top laners. Cruiser level 11 to a level 9 Zion Spartan. Zion's going to be a little bit careful because that's a Ravenous Hydra. Red buff secured.
Nice grab.
Good stun, actually. Locks him in place, and Dragon's been pulled.
Both teleports are up. Last time this situation occurred, Coast aggroed onto the Dragon and then was initiated on later about Dignitas. If they opt into the same situation once again, Dignitas is going to do the same thing again.
Solar Flare is available. There's the paranoia. You see Crumbs throwing himself into daydreaming. Solar Flare locks down 2 members of Coast. Nintendo is on full retreat. Summon a heal from WizFusion, keeps him alive for a few seconds longer. In the background, Skara does get soloed 1v1 there by Shifter. It's a 1-for-2 trade. Requiem comes down. That's going to be a whole bunch of damage. Dignitas gonna get the Dragon.
2 kills for Dignitas and the Dragon. Once again, if they just continue to do this, it's gonna become an insurmountable lead for these guys. They are executing how they need to in order to take down this Team Coast.
5,000 gold advantage for Dignitas. We see the Archangels has been completed. Rod of Ages has been silently stacking away over the last few minutes, and Skara is just continuing to grow in power. Doesn't have level 11 yet, but his items are more than making up for his position. Shifter did get a good kill, though. I mean, he bursted him down from the sidelines.
I mean, if we take another look at this fight, it's kind of as expected. Coast gets hard initiated on. Cruiser has a really nice kick in the back of the fight to get Fusion out of it immediately. But then, there's going to be an assassin in the back for him, but there's another fight coming up. Dignitas might have got a bit greedy.
Yeah, QtPie forced to bail out. KiwiKid is going to pull the attention of Coast, and it takes a little while longer to go down. Doesn't look like a chase is over yet. That's a flash from Zion Spartan. Doesn't get in range for the dash. And Daydreaming was looking for a hook. So sticking around and maybe
they got the blue. They were going in for the blue steal. QtPie runs out of that one. Still has it. Not worth the death on the KiwiKid, nonetheless. Zion going to try and split push down this lane and get more of his free lane farm.
Thanks to the kills, Zion is now actually closer in level to Cruiser. Actually even on level. All right, take a closer look at it. Nintendo still playing catch-up, still 2 levels down. Dignitas really responding well to the movements that Coast have been pushing on them. Tower is now getting sieged down. 50% of his HP is missing. The rest of Dignitas get themselves in range. Cruiser with that Ravenous, not necessarily a tanky front line, but definitely going to have the power to execute WizFusion if he can get onto him.
Yeah, they have more of a heavy dive damaging top lane or something like that with Nocturne and Lee Sin flying in. It's not your typical, you know, Mundo Shyvana that would dive in really early on in the 2014 season. These guys fly in and try and kill you right away. Blade of the Ruined King being completed is absolutely critical. He's actually got 10 Feral Flare stacks already, so he's going to continue to power up with that item. Cruiser, of course, onto some defensive itemization after finishing the Ravenous Hydra. But with all the front-loaded damage from Lee Sin and Nocturne, and the finishing damage from Scar's Requiem as he continues to farm up and build these items, you're going to be hard-pressed to stay alive as WizFusion.
Oh, Nintendo is in so much trouble, does grab the lance and gets out. Thanks to Daydreaming keeping him alive, though.
That burned a lot of ultimates. If Coast wants to try and re-engage, now might actually be the time.
Yeah, right.
There's no Solar Flare, no Nocturne ult to close.
Nor a Requiem for Skara.
Yeah.
Just play it safe, though. Maybe realizing just how far they are behind. And Nintendo in particular has actually got less gold than Kiwi Kid as a support right now.
Wow.
50 CS sitting on their sides, 4,680 to 4,680, and that's not a position you want to be in, especially on a champion that needs to be in the front lines for Coast, needs to be running amok for Dignitas, and he's just not powerful enough.
I was actually having a discussion with Saint on the analyst desk earlier about power spikes in League of Legends and how the good teams really understand when they can take edges, both in items, champion level, experience level. Some of the pros over in the Korean game build all their runes and masteries around reaching these very specific points in game where they will be at their absolute strongest point, and then being able to execute on those things. I think one of the big things for Coast here is they don't necessarily have that larger understanding of the overall game, so they don't know when they have a power spike. For instance, when the enemy team has a Requiem that's down because Karthus had just used it at level 10, it's on an incredibly long cooldown, Nocturne ults you, Leona ults you, and all it costs you is a Lantern, plus you've just finished Trinity Force and have a Deathfire on your Ahri, that's your power spike if you're Coast, and they needed to force something immediately, but they just went back to farming.
Yeah, window of opportunity was open, nobody attempted to go through, nobody attempted to make use of it. So Coast now find themselves in a position where Solar Flare is up, Requiem is up, Paranoia is getting closer and closer to being available for Crumbs. I think it'll be up by time Dragon is available, and generally that's been the deciding factor. 2 Dragons gone the way of Dignitas as far as fights were concerned. They grabbed the first one, uncontested, and you have to feel that's going to be the next objective for these teams to battle over, and probably for Dignitas to win.
There's an outside chance that one of these teams could throw a curveball, because it ends up happening in these somewhat formulaic games where you do dragon fight to dragon fight to dragon fight, because everyone gets the timers, everyone's warding around the dragon pit, and they oftentimes forget about the bigger one, and Baron goes and gets taken. These teams are most likely not following for it this time, though, because we actually see substantially more wards in the Baron area than the Dragon area. No sneaking happening this time.
Blade of the Ruined King, Feral Flare, and about 100 million stacks on that Feral for Crumbs, plus Karthus. I think there's
16.
There's a big threat. 16 stacks at 23 minutes. Yesterday, Nintendo hadn't even upgraded it to Feral Flare. Taking a quick look at
It's been a farm-heavy enough game that he's been able to do that. It's so beneficial for Dignitas to have Skara farming in the mid lane. It's not a gargantuan CS number, but he hasn't fallen behind Shifter in CS, and it's mainly just enabled Crumbs to clear up and down his jungle.
Taking a look at some of the rest of the items. WizFusion falling somewhat behind. Cutie Pie's got that Sheen sitting on Sorcerer's Shoes.
Yeah.
Cutie Pie fully completed Trinity Force and Bloodthirster. Daydream is in trouble. That's a flash for a flash. 2 flashes, actually. No, it was a dash.
Ooh, they lost vision. You could tell Crumbs was ready to go right in on that. But speaking of power spikes, right now is one of those for Dignitas with all those items completed and the Trinity Force. So they want to force around the Baron, knowing Cruiser's teleport is up, because they are stronger right now.
Cruiser is going to be pushing this bottom lane. Doesn't have any minions to work with. This gets closer to the inhibitor turret. The rest of Dignitas decide to back away from the Baron pit. Dragon has respawned, and it looks like Dig are making their way down towards that objective. Coast can arrive just a tiny bit late. Blue buff is up, and Cruiser should get this one by time Zion gets in. Decides to back away, actually.
Yeah, Zion's pretty good at securing these things. He got another one. He's still the blue buff now. Cruiser's in trouble.
Oh, that was close. The charm not connecting. Even though the cocoon does land, it's onto Kiwi Kid. Not the most ideal of targets. Solar Flare is not available for a fight in this pit, and it looks like Coast have got better positioning.
We have seen this twice already. But there's no Nocturnal this time to initiate the fight. The initiation will not be as clean for Dignitas, but they have an even bigger lead. Here comes.
We'll have to see how it works. They've hooked on Kid. That's great. Now the Dragon was secured by Nintendo in the background as PewDiePie is throwing the culling down. He grabs the first kill of the fight. It's actually onto Zion Spartan, secured there by Crumbs. Now Karthus has been dropped. Scara begins to channel the Requiem. That is a massive chunk of damage. That's a flash forward from PewDiePie. He gets the double shot after the Light Slinger, and that is a kill onto WizFusion. That's a stun onto Nintendo and an instant cocoon. Good reaction times.
Didn't
3
let
kills for 1.
get the stun on his auto attack afterwards, but that's still the story of this game. We could just make a montage of Coast doing Dragon and losing team fights to Dignitas because it is happening over and over again, even without ultimates this time. Now, Dignitas turns for Baron. Nintendo is up though, and he's good at stealing.
Dragon goes the way of Coast. Dignitas want the Baron. There's no flash for Nintendo, so we're looking for the repel into the smite. Baron is getting lower and lower.
It's
Zion
too dangerous.
Spartan.
They have to get out of here.
Oh, Zion Spartan gets one! The recall does manage to get off though as he turns his attention over to PewDiePie. PewDiePie is dead, and all of a sudden Coast set their sights on Baron.
Oh no, what a disaster waiting to happen here for Dignitas. Now Crumbs is alive, Scar is running, and they can teleport in. I wonder if they fight. They have Nocturnal.
Oh, Cruiser's in a little bit of trouble. He does get taunted. The charm lands, the hook lands. That's a dead Cruiser. He's going to get bruised. Does take them on a little bit of a hike though, and Coast still have not secured Baron. So yes, Cruiser died, but he's prevented the objective from being secured.
Chaos has ensued in this game. Crumbs telling Cruiser that he's on his own and then ends up getting jumped on by Zion. He has to burn his flash as well.
Somewhat out of position there, and Dignitas have really embraced Scara being back in the squad, and they've gone back to their old style of Barons. Let's force it and put ourselves in a worse position.
That was not a good call there by Dignitas overall. Let's take another look at this force. Zion teleported into the brush, and he still had his flash, so he was able to finish Kiwi Kid.
Oh.
Another half second, he gets the double kill.
That would have been
Easily.
so close.
Even so, the rest of the team chained on. Great chain CC, powering up Zion Spartan now, ended him up at 4-1. And, you know, Coast has made some big mistakes at Dragon this game. Dignitas was capitalizing on that again and again, and honestly, throughout the latter part of the season, Dignitas did get really good at taking Barons that they could take. They became much better at calculating those things, but old habits die hard sometimes, and that was a really bad Baron call.
And while that post-Baron fight went on, Zion Spartan picked up a bonus 500 gold from PewDiePie. Got that killing spree bonus into his back pocket, got himself a Giant Spell picked up, as well as that Spectre's Cowl. Obviously, Shifter now has the Zhonya's Hourglass to complement his Deathfire Grasp. So he can now run in, survive all that longer, maybe even dodge a Requiem or two if he times it well enough. And WizFusion still working towards his Trinity Force. So Dignitas, somewhat split across the map. PewDiePie is pushing that side lane. He's grown that CS lead to around 70 CS right now. Coast, they set their sights on what I believe is Baron.
They're feeling really strong right now because they were able to catch a few stragglers of Dignitas, but let's not forget that Dignitas is a vastly superior teamfight team.
Oof, wow! Like threading a needle.
Yeah,
Death Sentence
barely
at
missed.
3 targets and didn't catch anybody.
And there was no Lucian in that teamfight, so that may have been one that Coast could have found, but because that opportunity's been missed, they have to fall back immediately. And Dignitas needs to spend some time getting vision control back at Baron. They almost lost that one because they lost vision.
Coast playing that one maybe a little safe. They were looking for the pick. Didn't really make any major moves towards the Baron. PewDiePie's rejoined his team. No summoner heal though. Keep your eyes on that for either himself or Kiwi Kid. A whole bunch of flashes. Burn. Solar Flare. Oh, yeah, that's a doozy. Just lighting the path, putting the Eagle on the floor and showing Coast, you know what? We could have hit you. We could have gone in.
Careful now.
Not this time.
Watch where you step. But now with the Leona ultimate down, it means Coast gets a little bit more freedom. This game is all about vision around the Baron area now, because if Shifter can catch someone with the charm, he can end somebody before a fight begins. That's exactly what Coast would need to come back in this one. The fights in the open, where Dignitas has vision of Coast, like if they were to go to do Dragon again, mean Dignitas has the edge. That's why vision is important at Baron.
Oh, don't get ahead of yourself now, Jet. Still a minute and a half till Dragon. I feel unless somebody gets caught out of position, that's going to be the next engage. 6,500 gold in the lead. Death Sentence goes out. Barely scratches the dress of Scara. Doesn't manage to hook onto Karthus, and the rest of Coast still really just... I think they're just trying to find a... Trying those Hail Mary long-range skill shots, and nothing's connecting yet. Dignitas, they're set up in the bush. This could be bad.
Daydreamin' is a nice shot most of the time with his thresh hooks. He got known playing Blitzcrank right there.
Oh, we got it.
Sign actually steals. That's the third buff he's stolen this game.
Very sneaky, and that was with his ulti as well, so.
But now he's no ulti for a fight.
Oh,
he gets initiated on!
He does get stunned in place. All of a sudden, Cruiser's on the front line. That's a Lantern. It's going to keep Zion alive for a few seconds before a pinpoint solar flare locks down Daydreamin'. 2 quick kills for Dignitas. And the rest of Coast are in full retreat. Dignitas now think, do we want Baron? We'll see what they decide to do.
Right now, Dignitas was just gift-wrapped to Zion Spartan kill because he dashed right into a fight without having his ultimate up, and he had a blue buff he could donate to the killer, but they're not making the Baron mistake again because there is still a very capable assassin on the other side.
Yeah, Crumbs gets caught by the Cocoon. It doesn't really amount to much, though, and Dignitas back away. Not over yet for Coast. They're playing very confident, knowing that 2 of the members are down. Scar's clearing out the wards. A decent wall of pain.
Get him. Scar attacks way too slow. Can't kill 2 of them.
So Paranoia is not available for this next team fight. We see Culling and Solar Flare were both used. That time around, they actually found their targets, something that hasn't really been happening for the last 10 minutes.
This is a desperation call right now. Dignitas doesn't have vision, so if they don't check, Coast could get it, but they just checked.
We'll have to see how Dignitas handle this one. All 5 members of Coast have peeled away. Haven't suffered too much as far as the HP bars are concerned. Culling goes down, Daydream is being shredded. Nintendo took a ton of damage from that Bloodthirster and Last Whisper, and now Coast on the retreat.
And now the call for Dignitas is not to do Baron, because there are still 5 people alive on Coast, but they got them low. So the call is to push mid and try and get another big objective.
Good Wall of Pain's gonna zone out multiple members of Coast. Kiwi Kid doing even more work at that, forcing Coast to take the long way around. 50% of the tower has been shredded with that single wave. Crumbs is soloing the dragon.
He says, screw this, I'm going to do the dragon. He doesn't care about the mid lane turret right now. He is content just farming up because he is confident his team has a late game. And why wouldn't he be? Look at I'm a Cutie Pie's farm. Almost 100 higher than WizFusion. Scar is Karthus, he's farming up. He's got 28 stacks on top of his Pharaoh Flare, meaning he's killed 53 large monsters this game. And he's just piling up the defensive stats now. He's going to become a very strong Nocturne.
I would argue he is a very strong Nocturne. We'll need to see how Dignitas make it count, though, because that's the key. This has been a very, very passive phase. No real towers, big objectives outside of those dragons have fallen in a prolonged period of time. And Zion, yeah, he's stolen buffs. That was great, but then he just put himself too far forward. Got hooked, got caught by Kiwi Kid. And Kiwi Kid now setting up towards Baron. See, WizFusion is back off in the top lane. He's now 90 CS down. And if you just look at those farm numbers, it's just such a phenomenal lead for Dignitas.
It's got to be 12 minutes ago that I'm a Cutie Pie finished his Trinity Force, and WizFusion just completed it now. I'm a Cutie Pie has a full damage item and some defensive capabilities on top of it. Already with Lucian.
Have to see how Coast really plan on bringing this one back. They haven't been anywhere near control. Nintendo gets caught by the Solar Flare. In comes Crumbs. Dustbringer does land. Look for the Fear proc. That's a sidestep from Crumbs. Very, very smart.
Going off.
That was a decent enough repel from Nintendo to try get over to the Wraith camp. And again, a lot of ultimates thrown at Coast, but nothing really coming from it.
Coast is doing a pretty good job of disengaging. It's the way they've played all year when they've been successful. They're able to disengage the enemy fights and wait for their split pushers to get strong. But their split pushers aren't getting strong this game. They're doing one half of their strategy. But Dignitas is on Baron. Nintendo did go back to base. This has got to be the fight.
And 5 versus 4. They've managed to catch on to Daydreaming. He is just deleted under the damage of Dignitas. Now remember, that's bought a little bit of time for Nintendo.
Watch Shifter in this fight. Who can he kill? He is full health. Zhonya's DFG, everything.
Oh, man, doesn't manage to land the Orbit Deception on the way forward. On the way back, it does. With Fusion's got 1. Shifter manages a kill onto Skara. Here comes the Requiem. That's a Zhonya's Hourglass. Going to prevent the damage, but WizFusion's off on the side. Now, the next victim is most likely going to be Zion Spartan. They're trying to run him down.
Cutie Pie.
Cutie Pie's got 1. Cutie Pie's lifesteal is immense. Nintendo needs to repel. That's a Culling. He gets it onto Shifter. Dashes backwards. That's a triple. Cutie Pie goes huge for Dignitas.
Big
4 for 2.
on Cutie Pie's face and the Baron quick shot. They destroyed Coast. that was an example of them actually using Baron as their ally. It was a risky one, but there was no steal threat, and they knew how much stronger they were in the team fights. They're pushing on strong now after Cutie Pie cleaned up.
I did not expect that fight to turn out the way that it did, but Cutie Pie delivers 300 CS on that Lucian. All those items we touched on. They get the top inner turret, the mid inner turret, and Crumbs takes 30% of the HP off the inhibitor turret as well. It's now with 13,000 gold lead. And that window of opportunity, let's say it's closed. Coast really need to find something magical to balance this game back out.
I mean, look at Scar's items now. He's huge, but this fight is what's most important. It was kind of split because Dignitas did actually want to go back and finish the Baron after this kill onto Daydreamin'. And it was all about waiting for Coast to come in. They knew there were only 3 real threats here. But Crumbs knows the Baron is very important because he trusts his team to be strong enough in this fight. Shifter does get a good initiation, but just the Requiem alone and that Defile takes them low enough that Dignitas can clean up. And this is where it really gets interesting. I want to focus on, actually, I'm a Cutie Pie over here, as he takes down everyone. He dodges the Shifter stuff, and then because Nintendo is so weak, he can't do enough damage to I'm a Cutie Pie to cut through. And then it was really heady play by Cutie Pie to realize he could actually cull right afterwards, cancels it, and then kills him.
And dodges the cocoon with that relentless pursuit as well. I mean, it doesn't get better than that. That was just phenomenal mechanical display from Cutie Pie, and a definite LCS big play contender. Those Super Banshees Veils right now on 3 members of Dignitas as they siege up onto Inhibitor turret, and Coast going to be very hard pressed to defend this.
Yeah, you can say that again. I wonder if Dignitas is going to try an extremely hard dive or if they're just going to do a roundabout way. They have some really big side waves. Because they've been taking this one slow throughout, they should actually go to that bottom lane, clear out the wave, make sure all 3 waves are pushing at once. Just depends how patient they are. Quick shot.
36 minutes in, I think both these teams are feeling pretty patient.
Yep.
And we'll just need to see how Dignitas manages.
There's the ultimate.
Flare goes down, Paranoia has been channeled. Who is the target? It looks like it will be Nintendo. Nintendo manages to back away as Zion Spartans on the front line. Cutie Pie made no real attempt of going for champions. He appeared to be focusing down that turret. And again, Dignitas throw it all but the kitchen sink.
Yeah, turret's only got 300 health though. It regens a small amount of health each wave. They can still return and finish that one off later, but because they are down, Nocturne and Leona ultimate, as we've seen many times this game, they are going to clear the minion waves.
We'll see how Cutie Pie can continue to grow that CS lead. It is well over 100 at this point. Gold up to 14,000. And Dignitas haven't had the best of team fights. Let's be honest. They've created a lot of opportunities, but not closed. Coast sneaker tower underneath Dignitas' nose while they were pushing those side lanes.
All of Dignitas' successful team fights have focused around objectives that are mutually needed for both teams. And Coast is kind of opting into these fights. Any fight that Coast hasn't opted into, Dignitas hasn't been able to find. So the defining moment for this game for Dignitas, since they have accumulated about a 14,000 gold lead, tons of levels, barons, stronger late game team comp, everything, is to win their first fight on their terms and their terms alone. As soon as they do that, I think they win the game because that will most likely be at an inhibitor.
So Dragon has respawned once more. Crumbs is just healing so much.
34 Pharaoh Flare stacks. It's actually very important that he smites this one down, or at least make sure he gets a last hit for the large monster kill credit. Stack up 35. It means, not even counting the lifesteal he's getting from his Blade of the Ruined King, he is gaining 45 life on hit from that Pharaoh Flare.
That is an incredible number, and he's just going to be able to sustain through any of that damage Kirst is putting out. Unless Shifter really tries to focus him, I feel he's going to do it. But again, you've got the makings of that Randian's Omen. Banshee's Veil is a lot of resistances, a pretty good chunk of hit points. I mean, that's just shy of 3,000 on Crumbs.
Yeah.
And
he's gotten the tanky items.
It's a difficult situation to be in. Now let's see, will the Solar Flare land? Half and half. Shifter takes a ride on the Dark Passage, and Dig grab themselves a turret. They've set their sights onto the inhibitor now. Coast spamming away with their long-range abilities, but there's only so much time before Dig actually get onto the inhibitor.
Yeah, and they have the split-pushing Crumbs, who can still ult into a teamfight if Kiwi Kid finds it.
Landed everything they needed to onto Kiwi Kid. Crumbs looking for vision. Where is he going to go?
Alarm.
Where is he going to go? Just to deny vision. Do you see the talisman?
Last-ditch effort by Coast, maybe. No, the Nocturne ult is down, but if they go too far, they're going to die.
Yeah, Banshee's Veil, they're saving Cruiser. didn't get caught out by that stun of Irelia. Inhibitor secured. Somewhat anticlimactic as far as the fight was concerned, but props to Crumbs, denied the victory from Coast.
It was going to be a really cool camera move because they locked onto Crumbs as he was going to fly in. We're going to see this awesome Nocturne fly across. Then he decided not to fight it because Dignitas got the inhibitor anyway.
Crumbs full on trolling the spectators. Trolling us as well, to be fair. We were hoping for the fight.
He's powerful. He's got the same CS as his top laner. He is a monster on Nocturne right now. In fact, there's only one person on Coast that has more CS than Crumbs, which is absurdity.
Well, Crumbs definitely
the farm across the board is just disproportionate.
Yeah, Crumbs put on his carry pants today, really showing up, and consider how poorly Nintendo has shown up in this first game of the series. Now, Irelia, played by Zion, was up in the top lane. They've got onto the turret now, Dignitas. Cocoon catches out Kiwi Kid. This is a Requiem being channeled as well. That is a massive amount of damage onto Coast. Zion goes in, but that's way too deep. Cruiser grabs himself a kill onto Daydreaming, dashes away with the safeguard. Dignitas get themselves their 8th tower of the game, turn their attention to the inhibitor. Nintendo just managed to get away. Zion re-engages. He does manage to get a kill with the help of Wisp Fusion. That's actually 2 kills now for Coast. You see Carthus grabs himself one, solar flare in the background. That one connects. Kiwi Kid grabs himself a kill, and Nintendo is doing the best he can to hold off members of Dignitas, but another inhibitor falls.
Just slow and steady winning the race for Dignitas. They don't need to close this one out extremely quickly. 41 minutes in, they get their 2nd inhibitor and just show how much stronger they are than their opposition right there. Crumbs picks up a little bit more from his stacks. They're going to go back to base because Baron is up.
Well, Dignitas should have a fairly good time, fairly safe time of grabbing themselves as well.
The Requiem at the start of this dumped on Coast at the start right there, so they could not fight after this one. Cruiser could go in for a finishing execute, and then it was just Dignitas's need to finish the turret that stopped them from cleaning this fight completely. Coast was not interested at all in defending that. They did try to re-engage once they could get a catch on to Cutie Pie, and they blew him up pretty well. Finally, Solar Flare finds through. Right.
So after seeing the Karma and Lulu mids, maybe Leona, AP Leona mid could be the next big thing. Kiwi Kid's onto something. Sniping people off with that solar flare.
Seems to be using it for fun in a lot of these fights. He's throwing it off very early. The team isn't necessarily following up extremely well for it, but it's because Coast does have pretty good disengage, and because Dignitas is just so far ahead, they don't need to take big risks.
Close to a 20,000 gold lead. Dignitas on the cusp of being 1 game away from securing their spot in the summer split. The weight of performances yesterday and the weight of the pressure of being in the summer split is there.
Take a look at that. Scar has 828 ability power right now, sitting on a blue elixir and all those items. He's got some pretty heavy rune itemization to reach that number.
His Requiem's only hitting for 1,060 damage.
Yeah, and look, there's no magic resist on a shifter, so he has to use his Zombies on that Requiem if he doesn't want to get taken to half. Maybe a steal attempt, though.
We'll see if they can land it. Nintendo goes in, doesn't manage to grab it. That means Nintendo's dead. Baron's been secure for Dignitas. Requiem starts being channel. Shifter is forced to use the Hourglass. That is a dead Wisp Fusion. Zion Spartan gets run down. Shifter takes a shot from Cutie Pie. Cutie Pie with the double kill. 4 members of Coast are down, and Dig can clean the base.
Quick shot, I think that's going to be it. 20 kills to 11. Dignitas is going to move ahead 1-0 in this game. It's just a matter of pushing down the mid lane, getting those minions down, and finishing off the Nexus turrets. Daydreaming cannot stop this.
There is nothing that Daydreaming can do right now. Dignitas, 80,000 gold as they start hammering on the Nexus turrets. They secure their first game in the series. Drawn out, but you have to admit, pretty convincing on the side of Dignitas. They were really in control from the get-go and never really pushed it.
So a solid start to the day for these guys after being dropped into this 5th place match. 1 more win, and they guarantee their spot in the summer split for 2014. One thing I liked about Dignitas' strategy in this game is how they just farmed. They didn't press themselves to make any decisions because they are against a team that doesn't know how to close games or lead on advantages. So if Dignitas just picks a better scale and team composition, focuses on farming, they're going to be all right, and they were.
Crumbs farmed up